There are moments in life when the weight feels too heavy, when every prayer seems delayed, every door seems closed, and every day feels like another test you never asked for. You wake up hoping things will change, but the hardship continues. You ask yourself, how much longer? You wonder if your tears are being seen, if your du'as are being heard, and if relief is really coming. But what if the struggle you are facing right now is not the end of your story? What if the pain you carry today is actually preparing you for something greater than you can imagine? Because throughout life, there is one reality many people forget. Sometimes the darkest nights come right before the first light of dawn. Perhaps what you are experiencing is not punishment. Perhaps it is preparation. Perhaps the delays, the disappointments, the sleepless nights, and the silent tears are leading toward a moment that will make sense of everything. Today, we will talk about 7 powerful signs that may show your hardship is ending and your miracle is beginning. Stay until the end, because one of these signs may describe exactly what you are living through right now. There are people who look strong on the outside, but inside they are carrying battles nobody knows about. They smile in front of others while fighting silent wars in their hearts. Hardship has a strange way of changing people. Sometimes it arrives suddenly, turning life upside down. Sometimes it comes slowly, little by little, until a person realizes they are no longer the same as before. But there is something important to understand. Not every hardship comes to destroy you. Sometimes hardship comes because something inside you needs to grow. Think about who you were before your struggles started. Perhaps you became upset quickly. Perhaps you relied too much on people. Perhaps small problems felt like mountains. Then life tested you. Suddenly, you discovered strength you never knew existed. You survived days you thought would break you completely. You faced situations you once believed were impossible to endure. And although the pain was real, something else happened quietly in the background. You started changing. One of the signs that hardship may be nearing its end is when you notice the struggle is no longer simply hurting you, it is transforming you. There is a difference between being broken by difficulty and being shaped by it. When hardship begins changing your character, your patience, your mindset, and your relationship with your Creator, something important is happening. There was a time when every delay made you angry. Now you have learned patience. There was a time when every disappointment destroyed your peace. Now you recover faster. There was a time when your heart depended heavily on people, but now you find yourself turning toward Allah more than before. Sometimes people ask, why am I still going through this? But perhaps another question should be asked. Who am I becoming through this? Because growth rarely feels comfortable. Strength rarely develops during easy times. The person who carries wisdom today often carries scars from yesterday. The person who speaks gently today may have once experienced pain that taught them softness. When hardship begins changing you instead of destroying you, you may notice small things becoming different. You react differently. You think differently. You pray differently. Problems that once looked enormous no longer feel impossible. You begin understanding that survival itself is proof of strength. There is something beautiful about reaching a point where the storm is still around you, but it is no longer controlling what happens inside you. The situation may not have changed yet, but your heart has changed. And sometimes that inner transformation becomes more valuable than the thing you were asking for. You know what hardship often removes? Illusions. It removes the illusion that life will always go according to your plans. It removes the illusion that people will always stay. It removes the illusion that control belongs to us. And when these illusions disappear, something stronger can appear. Trust. There are people who became more grateful because of hardship. Strange, isn't it? How can pain create gratitude? Yet many people eventually realize that difficulties taught them to appreciate things they once ignored. A peaceful morning, a healthy body, supportive family. a small moment of happiness. Struggles have a way of opening eyes. You may also notice that your patience is growing. Not because waiting became easy, but because you have waited so long that you learned how to survive uncertainty. Patience is not simply sitting quietly. Patience is carrying pain without allowing it to destroy your values. Patience is continuing when you are tired. Patience is praying again even after feeling disappointed. Some people think strong people never cry. That is not true. Strong people cry too. They simply continue moving afterward. Sometimes Allah allows certain struggles because the person entering the hardship is not the same person needed for the blessing ahead. Growth happens between the prayer and the answer. Lessons happen during the waiting. Look carefully at your life. Maybe a year ago you would have reacted differently. Maybe 6 months ago you would have given up faster. Maybe earlier versions of yourself could not handle what you are handling today. That change matters. And perhaps one of the clearest signs that hardship is changing you instead of breaking you is this: despite everything, your heart still carries hope. Not because life became easy, not because answers arrived immediately, not because every problem disappeared, but because somewhere inside you, even after disappointment, even after tears, even after delays, there is still a voice saying, keep going. That voice matters. Many people think miracles only look like sudden changes. Sometimes miracles look different. Sometimes miracles look like surviving something that should have destroyed you. Sometimes miracles look like standing again after falling repeatedly. Sometimes miracles look like becoming softer instead of bitter after experiencing pain. You may not realize how much you have changed because you are living inside your own story every day. There are moments in life when a person feels far from everything they once depended on. Life becomes heavy, thoughts become overwhelming, and the heart quietly searches for something stable to hold on to. In those moments of hardship, something very deep often begins to change inside a person without them even realizing it. They begin to return to Allah in a way they never did before. Not out of habit, not out of routine, but out of need, out of sincerity, out of a brokenness that turns into a doorway of connection. When everything is going smoothly, it is easy for a person to become distracted. The world pulls the attention in many directions. Work, family, goals, desires, and daily responsibilities fill the mind. Prayer may still be there. Remembrance may still exist, but the depth is often different. Then hardship arrives, and suddenly the heart begins to wake up in a way it had not before. The same person who used to delay dua now finds themselves turning to it instantly. The same heart that once felt distant now begins to feel more present, more aware, more connected. It is not that Allah was ever far. It is that the heart becomes more attentive when life becomes silent in every other direction. When people cannot help anymore, when plans stop working, when solutions seem far away, the human being naturally turns to the one who never closes his door. And in that turning, something powerful begins to happen. The relationship becomes real, not just spoken, but felt deeply inside. During hardship, prayers begin to change. They become more honest. Words are no longer just repeated phrases, but emotions spoken from the depth of the heart. A person begins to talk to Allah in a more personal way, sharing fears, hopes, regrets, and desires without hesitation. Tears often become part of that conversation, not out of weakness, but out of sincerity. And in those silent moments, something within begins to soften. A heart that was once busy chasing everything begins to slow down. It starts noticing small things it once ignored. A peaceful moment feels valuable. A small blessing feels meaningful. Even breathing through a difficult day becomes something to be thankful for. Hardship, in its own quiet way, begins to remove the distractions that once covered the heart. It clears space inside a person so that remembrance can settle deeper than before. There is also a change in dependence. Before hardship, many people feel they can rely on their own strength or on others around them. But when life becomes uncertain, That sense of control slowly fades. People may try, but they realize there are limits to what they can manage. In that realization, something important opens inside the heart. Dependence shifts from creation to the Creator. Not because a person is forced, but because they begin to understand where true support has always been. Even patience in worship begins to grow during these times. There are days when dua feels unanswered, when waiting becomes long, when confusion enters the heart. Yet despite that, a person continues to turn back again and again. That repeated return becomes a sign of something deep forming inside. It shows that connection is no longer based on immediate results but on trust. Trust that even if things are not clear right now, there is wisdom behind every delay. Gratitude also begins to appear in unexpected ways. A person going through difficulty starts appreciating things they once overlooked. Health, safety, small moments of peace, kind words from others, even the strength to continue another day. These things start to feel valuable in a new way. It is as if hardship removes the noise so that blessings can finally be noticed. And slowly, without loud announcements or sudden changes, the heart begins to transform. Not into a perfect heart, but into a more aware one. A heart that remembers Allah more naturally, turns to Him more quickly, and finds comfort in speaking to Him even when everything else feels uncertain. That connection becomes a source of strength that was not fully understood before. Even though the hardship may still be present, something within begins to feel different. There is still pain, but there is also turning. There is still waiting, but there is also hope. There is still uncertainty, but there is also trust growing quietly inside the heart. And in that quiet transformation, a person begins to realize that closeness to Allah is not always found in ease, but often discovered in the very moments that feel the most difficult. There comes a point in some people's lives when something subtle but powerful begins to change inside them. The things that once felt absolutely necessary start to lose their grip on the heart. What once felt like, I must have this for my life to be complete, slowly turns into a quieter feeling of, if Allah has not written it for me, then maybe there is goodness in that too. This shift does not happen overnight. It is shaped through experience, through disappointment, through waiting, and through moments where the heart learns that control was never truly in its hands. When hardship continues for a while, the heart naturally begins to question its attachments. People, opportunities, dreams, plans, and expectations that once felt essential begin to feel lighter in importance. Not because they stop mattering completely, but because the heart starts to realize that everything in this world is temporary and fragile. A person may still desire things, but the desperation begins to fade. And in that fading desperation, something new is born, acceptance. Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is understanding that Allah's plan is wiser than your emotions in the moment. It is when a person still makes dua, still hopes, still works, but no longer breaks inside if things do not go exactly as expected. That is a deep form of emotional and spiritual maturity that often only comes after hardship. You may notice this change in yourself during difficult times. Things that once triggered frustration no longer affect you the same way. Delays that once felt unbearable now feel like part of a bigger wisdom you are slowly learning to trust. Even when life does not align with your expectations, your heart starts saying, maybe this is not what I wanted, but maybe it is what I need. This kind of detachment from dunya does not mean the world loses value completely. It means the world stops controlling your peace. Your happiness is no longer tied entirely to outcomes. Instead, your heart begins to find stability in submission. There is a quiet strength in being able to say, Ya Allah, if you give me what I want, I will be grateful. And if you delay it or replace it, I will still trust you. Hardship often becomes the teacher of this mindset. It shows a person that everything they chase can be taken away, delayed, or changed in ways they never expected. And in that realization, dependence shifts again. not just in actions, but in the heart itself. The heart starts resting in the belief that whatever Allah chooses carries wisdom, even if it is not immediately understood. At this stage, peace begins to feel different. It is no longer found in having everything go perfectly. It is found in being okay with whatever Allah writes. A person may still go through difficulties, but inside there is a growing sense of surrender. Not helpless surrender, but peaceful surrender. The kind that says, I do not know what is best for me, but my Lord does. And slowly the heart becomes lighter. Not because life becomes easier, but because the burden of controlling everything is slowly being lifted. And in that space, a deeper kind of comfort begins to grow. One that is not dependent on circumstances, but on trust in the one who controls them.